Okay, so I've started this podcast in my head 100 times, and every version sounded like a podcast. And I know you're probably like, girl, what does that even mean? I'm talking about the whole welcome to the first episode of Girl Hold On. I'm Kim McCarter. We're here to talk about, and I'm just like, no, I can't do it because the truth is, I don't think I created this podcast because I have something new to talk about. I think I created it because somewhere around 47, 48 years old, I looked around at my life and I realized I had changed, like really changed. And somehow I was still trying to live inside of a life that had been built by older versions of me. And I know probably some of you can relate to that, but at the time, I didn't have the language for it at first. I just knew I was restless, I was irritated, I was bored with things I used to care about, and I was completely uninterested in parts of my own business. Certain conversations just started exhausting me. Things I used to want to do just didn't hit the same. And because I'm me, I assumed I needed to fix it. So I kind of went in this cycle like, okay, this is what I do. I need to fix this shit. I need to make a plan. I need to figure it out. I've been in business since 2012. I've worked with clients. I've built funnels, created offers, coached, consulted. I've led teams. I've helped people make a whole lot of money in these internet streets. And I know how to take a problem apart and put it back together so there's a fix. So naturally, when I started feeling disconnected from my own life, I treated myself like another project. Maybe I need to get more disciplined. Maybe I need a new offer. Maybe I need to post more. Maybe I need to pray more. Maybe I need to get out of the house. Maybe I need a hobby. Maybe I need to stop being ungrateful. All of these things just kept coming up. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, if nothing else, I know I need to get my shit together. And that was what I eventually realized. I was trying to get back to myself. And the problem was, I did not want to go back. That realization, that really messed me up in the head a little bit because who exactly was I trying to get back to? The woman who could work all day, the woman who could carry everybody, the woman who knew how to make herself useful in every room, the woman who could take a business and force it to work because she had enough skill to do damn near everything, the woman who could survive. And I was like, but I love that woman. I love her so deeply because she got me here. But the truth was, I don't want to be her anymore. Or maybe that is not exactly right. I do not want her making every decision. And I think that's where my whole Realign Living lifestyle got started. Not as a brand, not as a podcast, not as a methodology, not as a Substack, but just as a question of who am I now and how does my life know that I've changed? Over the last few years, I've lost 104 pounds. And even saying that out loud is interesting because people hear 104 pounds and immediately understand that as a transformation. There is a before, there is an after, there is a number. People understand numbers. There's just no if, ands, or but about it. But what they do not see is that everything that changes around that number. Because I had to learn how to live in a different body. I had to learn to change how I ate, how I thought about food, how I moved, what I believed I could do and what I couldn't do. Because there were a lot of things I was like, oh, I can't do that. But the truth was I could. What I saw when I looked in the mirror, and this is the weird part, is that your body can change faster than your identity. There were moments when I was physically becoming somebody new and emotionally still responding from the older version of myself. So I started following women who had the results that I wanted. I used my fitness pal, I tracked my food, I paid attention to what I was eating, but the tracking was only part of it. I needed evidence, and I knew I had to create that evidence myself. I needed to see women doing what I was trying to do because sometimes you're working towards something and it still feels fake in your own head. You're doing the work and some part of you is still like, girl, who do you think you are? And I needed to see that thing that I wanted existed. So as my body was changing and I realized my life wasn't keeping up with it, I knew that I had to just think about every area of my life differently. And what I want to talk to you about in this episode is really What happens when you become the woman who can no longer hold nor want to be the old woman of yourself? What were the things that I did to make sure that I could mentally and emotionally keep up? Because my emotional wellness was such a deep part of my journey. And it wasn't that I was doing anything drastic or some may feel like is extreme. Because let me tell you, I was not the 75 hard girl. I definitely had slip ups and setbacks. There were definitely times when I fell down and had to get back up. Okay. But I want to share with you 4 very specific things that even if you just commit to being like, I'm going to start with one thing, because I didn't do everything at one time. What I did was I commit to one thing for 5 weeks, and then I'll be like, okay, I'm consistent with this. Let me add something else. And if I didn't stick to the 5 weeks, when I realized I had fell off track, I would just commit to getting back on track with that one thing. And once I really got consistent with one thing became 2 things I had to be consistent with. When I got consistent with 2 things, 3 things had to be something that I was consistent with. But there were some things that I did that were one and done. Let me tell you guys, when I say I was so ingrained in becoming this new version of myself, I actually felt bored in business because business just felt like I was just doing the same monotony. I felt like it became routine. It became just a duplication of itself day after day. And in order to try to get that spark back, I tried to figure out what that was going to look like. And this is probably something a lot of you face. I'm a 6'2" manifesting generator. And one of the things that happen with a manifesting generator is because we multitask and we can commit to a bunch of different things because that's how our energy works, we end up going, okay, I could do this, 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 and this. And then when something we get bored with or it falls off, we like, okay, now let me go do something else, right? And what ends up happening with a manifesting generator, and I can speak not just for myself, but for the hundreds of women that I've coached in human design as well, when it comes to sales, money, and marketing and using your human design chart in your business, the biggest thing that I had to do differently was stop using my human design as an excuse. I was leaning into this idea that because I was a manifesting generator and I get to idea hop, that idea hopping was okay. And I had to realize that was an excuse. And even though there was this justification in my energetic blueprint, I also knew that at some point, I had to stop using that as an excuse. I had to figure out what it is that I really wanted to do. I had to commit to doing that thing. And then if I wanted to idea hop, it doesn't mean I need to idea hop in business. I can idea hop in my own life. Maybe I decide I want to date a bunch of people, become poly, right? I'm never doing that, by the way. Girl, I am never doing that. Well, you know, they say never, because I have read a couple of really good books lately. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. But what I'm trying to get at, because I could do so many things, I could coach, I could build funnels, I could consult, I could do implementation. I also knew I did not want to keep doing all of it. And I think this is one of the biggest mind fucks of being good at a lot of things. You start believing your capabilities are assignments. I can do it, therefore I should. People will pay me for it, therefore I should sell it. I have experience in it, therefore I should keep talking about it. And I had built a business around so much of what I could do that I had lost touch with what I actually wanted to keep doing. So I went all in on my audit. One offer, one clear problem, one piece of work I knew I was damn good at, and baby, the relief. Because for the first time in a while, I was not asking, what else can I create? I was asking, what am I willing to keep? That question followed me everywhere since. What am I willing to keep in my business, in my relationships, in my habits, in the way I spend time, in the way I think about success? I started realizing that rebuilding my life was just going to require subtraction, and I am a woman who knows how to add. I know how to add another idea, another offer, another plan, another responsibility, another goal. Y'all get my drift. I can add some shit, okay? But subtraction, baby, that is a whole different story. And it's because we live in this world where we get instant gratification. So adding on more is quite easy. But when you have to take something away, that can be hard. And as I was trying to figure out, like, how do I want to get this done? It was around the time that I listened to 4 books that really helped me figure out less is more. And in the best of ways. And for some people, these 4 books make absolutely no sense together. But for me, they made perfect sense. And that's why they worked. The first book I was not new to. I had actually read it for the first time in 2014. And that was Built to Sell by John. Warrillo. And one of the things that they talk about in this book is the idea that you have to make sure the world knows you are great for something very specific. And when you get great at something very specific, you need to put the processes in place so that way it's Robin duplicatable and you can actually become the CEO and you can step away from your business. In 2014, this book really taught me to never nasty gal my business. I don't know if you guys remember the story, but how Sophia built Nasty Gal, and then when she got ready to sell it, everybody needed her to be in the company because people were actually buying from her and not the Nasty Gal experience. And Built to Sell taught me that never nasty gal your business. So I had read that book a couple of times. It's a book that I often refer to my clients. But what I ended up doing was going back and reading it for myself. And I was like, this is the problem, right? I know how to do a lot of things. I have the SOPs. I have access to hire people. But what is that one thing that I just wanted to be Robin duplicatable over and over and over again? And for me, that ended up being the premium digital product, a branded summary report that I could actually attach to my audit. So that way my clients, when they walked away with a tangible asset. And in my mind, the reason why I was doing that is because, one, I don't want people coming back having to ask me a bunch of questions. I want them to be able to be like, I hired Kim, she did her job, I walked away with this sellable asset that I can always refer back to. And when I'm hiring her again, I'm hiring her because I need a deeper level of support. I'm hiring her again because I trust her work. I'm hiring her and referring her to my people because she did such a great job for me. The other side of that was because I had a sellable asset that they were tangibly walking away with, they could never say they didn't get what they paid for. The report was proof of that. And this report is not just like a highlight reel with bullets. These reports are deep. They're detailed. They explain my findings. There's an overview. It tracks their goals. When I go through and assess their businesses, they know what I found. I show evidence of what I found. I give them the fixes for it. And I give them a 30-day plan that they need to go forward with. The second book I read was 10X is Easier Than 2X. Now, actually, let me take that back. I didn't read it. I actually listened to it. And I listened to it with the help of ChatGPT. Let me explain what I mean. I purchased the book through Audible. And the funny thing is, the book was already in my Audible. I had bought it like years before and never actually listened to it. But when I was going on my daily walks, I would listen to 10X is Easier Than 2X. And I would talk to ChatGPT about the things that were coming up for me. And what it did is it was helping me figure out, like, what is the one thing I wanted to go all in on? I kind of had an idea that that was going to be the premium digital product. But at the same time, I was kind of like also in my head on this idea of like, well, is that the thing I should really do? Will people understand it? 10X is Easier Than 2X helped me trust the fact that if you go all in on one thing and that thing is the thing that makes your business tangible, it makes your results worth it, it's just easier to scale the company. The third book I listened to was Company of One. And I actually ended up on this book totally by accident. It was a suggestion for me in Audible after I listened to 10X is Easier Than 2X. And that book just really hit my soul because it helped me realize that it is okay to not have the multi-million-dollar business goal. It is absolutely okay to be really good and live a comfortable life. And you get to decide what that comfort is, whether that's 200,000, 500,000, a million, 5 million, 10 million, 40 million. But you get to decide what that gets to look like and you get to build your business around that. And if you stay small, if you stay boutique, you are actually a more valuable asset than you could ever realize. And that last book that I read was a total fluke because I had never heard about this book before, but two people, celebrities, Jay-Z and Jill Scott, both talked about it on interviews within like a month span. And I was like, oh, I need to listen to that book. And that is The Celestine Prophecy. And although it is a nonfiction book, it teaches the principles of life. And going in and listening to The Celestine Prophecy, that was a book that I really just took my time with. This book had me paying attention to what I kept noticing, to what kept showing up, to what I was dismissing because it didn't fit in the plan, to the possibility that I did not want to force every answer. And somehow these four completely different books were all asking me the same thing. Kim, what are you still carrying because you have not stopped long enough to question it? That is the question I want you to sit with, because that question is going to be the foundation of you accepting your assignment and going into your realigned living area. And I'm going to be honest with you. One of the things it helped me release was journaling. finally accepted that I am not a journaling girl. I'm just not. I've tried. I bought the notebooks. I bought the pens. I tried to schedule it. Like, I have all of the prompts. I even get my clients to journal. Okay. But journaling is not for me. And every time I said this time I'm going to be consistent, it was never that time. And the funny thing is, for years, I treated that like it was a character flaw. Like, why can't I journal? Why can't I sit down and write my feelings every morning? Why can't I do my gratitude list every night? Meanwhile, I love to talk. Girl, okay? Hold on, because I can talk, baby, okay? So I started leaving myself voice notes. And it was the oddest things. I didn't care what I was doing. They were long. If I was driving, if I was sitting in the house, if I was working through something, if an idea popped up when I was cooking, if I was mad, irritated, confused, wanted to cut somebody out, if I was scared, if I was excited. Sometimes I was just talking to myself just to be talking to myself. Sometimes I was saying things I was not ready to say to anybody else. Sometimes I was reminding myself who the hell I was because I had forgotten for a minute. I mean, I had to talk my own bigness up, okay? And then I started transcribing them, and that changed everything because in transcribing them, I could go back and read myself changing. I could see the old fears. I could see when I had an accomplishment and how excited I was. I could see the things that I kept trying to accept. I could see where my language shifted, and I could see when I stopped asking for permission, which was a big one. I could see when something that used to scare me no longer had the same power, and I realized I had been looking for evidence of change in outcomes. I was looking for the scale, the money, the clients, the external thing. Meanwhile, there was evidence in my own language. I was already becoming somebody different and I hadn't even really noticed it. And I think like this is one of those times where you hear people start going, you're changed, and you kind of want to be like, well, I'm the same old me. And that's when you kind of have to sit back and you really have to start figuring things out. And honestly, that is the part I'm probably still figuring out. One of the biggest things that I stopped doing was gossiping so much. Now listen, I can gossip, okay? And I don't mean like negative way, but just I want to be knowing the tea. I'm not coming on episode 1 line to y'all, okay? I absolutely sit on the phone and say, girl, tell me what happened. Girl, hold on, what you say? That has been a form of connection in so many of my friendships, to talk about what someone did, to talk about what's happening on the internet, who said what, whose relationship was falling apart, who made a bad decision, who keeps doing the same thing over and over again, how many times they gonna go back to their man, who lost their damn mind. And then one day I started paying attention to how I felt after those conversations. Sometimes I felt completely drained. Sometimes I was emotionally involved in situations that had absolutely nothing to do with me. Sometimes I spent an hour talking about someone else's choices and had not spent 10 minutes thinking about my own. And when I started changing that, I had to face something really, really, really uncomfortable. And that was, if we cannot connect this way anymore, how do we connect? And that is one of the things I'm still figuring out, because there are people who I used to talk to every day that I don't talk to anymore. Don't get me wrong. I love my friends. This is not some I'm healed and outgrown everybody BS. I'm not going to come on here with y'all with that. I don't believe I'm better than people because I'm changed. I'm asking different things for my relationships now. I want to talk about what we're building. I want to talk about what we're afraid of. I want to talk about what we want. I want to talk about what we are reading, where we want to go, who we are becoming. And sometimes changing the way you connect changes the relationship. And it is hard to deal with friendship breakup, but it is something that was so real for me because it really helped me understand that sometimes you can only connect with people with how you connect with people. But in doing that disconnection, it also allowed me to find time and joy for the things that I really wanted to do. And that was something that was really big for me. It was like, I absolutely love time freedom. Time freedom is one of my biggest core values. It is my primary core values. I want to do what I want, when I want, how long I want, and I don't want you to question me about why I'm doing it, okay? That doesn't mean that I'm stubborn about it, but it's just like, I find joy in being a homebody. I find joy in being by myself. And as the baby, of 12 years, I kind of grew up by myself. I was in the house by myself, so I always had to entertain myself. So entertaining myself as an adult is super easy. And one of the things I found the biggest joy in was starting to read urban fiction and urban romance again. Because, baby, Jacquel J, Aubrey J, baby, these girls be writing in these internet streets, okay? They be writing. I need y'all to understand how much joy it brings me to sit here with my phone, my iPad mini, and just give me some mess. Give me a family secret. Give me a woman who finds out her man has a whole second family 3 chapters in, okay? The guy who is unhinged. Give me the guy who don't play about his sweet little thing, okay? Give me the guy who will grab you by the neck and be like, hey, you my wife and you don't even know his first name. Baby, when I tell you I'm here for it, I am here for it. But there were other joys and things that I started doing as well. I started cooking more and being able to be like, I know what I'm putting in my body because I'm choosing what I'm putting in my body. Listen, I know these things sound all over the place, but it really was so catalyst into stepping into this new era of who I am, because everyone talks about what it means to get into alignment, but nobody really talks about what it means after you've taken the courses, you've done the affirmation work, you've done the fast, you've done the prayers, you've spent tens of thousands of dollars on the certifications, the courses, the masterminds, the retreats. And then you have to figure out how to get back to yourself. No one never really talks about what it means to get into realignment. And I think the part of that is because people talk about evolving, but they really don't know what evolving is. Hell, I'm still learning what evolving is. I have a person, a very special person in my life who tells me all the time, you don't know what it means to evolve because you think you evolve once and then you just sit there, but you should be constantly evolving. And as you're constantly evolving, you have to know that things are going to change. You have to know that that evolution is constant change, and you have to recognize the patterns that you keep holding on to, so that way you can act accordingly and act differently. And you don't know how you're going to act in those moments until you're put in that moment. And it's never just a once and done thing. It is going to be times where you're going to be questioned, you're going to be tested, and you have to respond in those moments. You may pass the test with flying colors the first time around, but then the next time it comes up, you may find yourself reverting back. A couple of weeks ago, me and this special friend, we were in the car, and he asked me a question, and it was such a simple question where I could have answered yes or no. And in my mind, I answered the question, but for him, he was like, so what's the answer? And I repeated my answer, and he's like, you know that's a yes or no question, right? And I was like, oh, damn, no. And he was like, see, you reverting back because you don't be practicing. And practicing is not just about response. Practicing is about taking in, thinking, and then responding. But because we live in this fast-paced world, because we are always in rooms or environments where we have to know the answers, we feel pressure to know the answers, that sometimes when we say we want to come into our soft girl era, when we say we want to be taken care of, we have to understand what it really means to be in a situation where we can be protected and provided for, where we don't have to think about the answer. And what happens is whenever those conversations come up on the internet, we talk about, well, I have to feel safe in order to let go. But if you've never been in a situation where you felt safe, you don't even know how to let go, to let safety in. That was also a part of realigned living. And when I think about it, I knew that being able to talk about and understand and find my own pattern of balance was something that was so needed for so many other consultants, done for you service providers, women in business. I'm a 1970s baby, a Xennial. I'm 48 years old, okay? And I knew that there was just some things in life I don't want to do no more. There's just some things in life I'm just setting my ways about. And looking at life now, this second season of life, as so many of us call it, because even though I'm on my second season of life, baby, I feel like this is my 4th or 5th act, okay? I done been at least 4 or 5 versions of myself in this adult life. So because this is where I am, I just had to look at, like, what does balance get to look like? What does alignment get to look like? And that's how I landed on the idea that, oh, it's not alignment, it's realigned living. It is the balance between your business and your life and creating that in a way that works for you. The way that works for me may not be the way that works for you. And that is exactly what I want to tell you now. On episode 1, I do not have a neat little answer for where all of this ends. I'm in it. I'm 48. I'm an exennial. I have been booked and profitable since 2012. I have lost 104 pounds. I have rebuilt parts of my business. I have changed how I think about friendships. I'm thinking differently about my body, money, work, joy, aging, success. What I want the second half of my life to feel like is the question I am still figuring out. That is what I want this podcast to be, a record of that. A conversation about what happens when you've already lived enough life to know who you are, and then you change again. Because I think that is the part nobody prepared me for. I thought becoming someone new would be the hard part. I did not realize I would have to learn how to live as her. I didn't realize my life would still be full of decisions made by older versions of me. I did not realize I would look at my calendar and ask, who built this? Look at my business and ask, who wanted this? Look at my relationships and ask, what kind of connection do I want now? To look at my goals and ask whether I still give a damn. And maybe that is what realignment actually is. Not finding some perfect version of yourself and staying there forever, but coming back, paying attention, telling the truth, changing your mind, and making another decision. So this is me. This is where I am. And this is why this podcast exists. We are going to talk about business because I've been doing this a long damn time. And trust me, I got a whole lot of thoughts, strategies, secrets, and lessons. We're going to talk about getting older. We're going to talk about bodies, money, friendships, relationships. We're going to talk about some books because, books. We're going to talk about joy and work and ambition, those damn kids, the internet, the weird things that happens when you realize you don't want what you used to want, and probably a whole bunch of things I don't even know we're going to talk about yet, because I am not interested in spending the second half of my life doing things I don't even like. And if you have ever looked around at your own life and thought, I worked too damn hard to get here to feel disconnected from it, you probably understand a lot of what we're going to be talking about here. I'm MsKimMcCarter, and I am so excited to welcome you into your journey and your realigned living era. But girl, hold on until the next time, because who knows what that episode is going to be about. I'll see you around.